Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at a reel called The Road to Malvern. It's an Appalachian tune, pretty modern composition by Jim Childress, a West Virginian fiddle player. Apparently Malvern is a town in Arkansas. Or is it Kansas? I learned this tune from the Italian band Gadan. I was playing with them all summer. Loved it. It's an unusual one because the second part only has 7 bars. I love these kind of crooked tunes, very common of course in Appalachian old-time playing and old-time tunes. This one is really nice. It's the key of A, it's dead simple. We're going to look at some really nice slidey chords just to give it a bit of Appalachian flavor. But the 7-part second part, that makes lots of sense, right? That takes a little bit of getting used to. So again, it's one of these tunes where you just kind of learn it, watch out for the road marks and say, right, I know this is the end of it, and now I'm going to repeat the second part, even though we might be expecting the 8-measure, 8-bar thing that we're used to in Irish music. I'm going to try and keep this one short, so if you want to learn the simple basic melody, head on straight over to Patreon, and you'll find it in scrolling notation tab, ABCs, and regular staff notation. Let's just look at the second part first. The second part first. First, let's look at the second part first. It sounds like it's missing a bar or a measure because it is. Normal Irish reels and jigs are all 8 bars repeated or single. This has 7 bars. It's got 7 measures in the second part. And so essentially finishes a bar early. So here it is again. So how do you go about memorizing or learning or even getting your head around a second part that only has 7 bars? I've been talking a little bit on the channel lately about memorizing a tune in blocks, and it's almost like a road map, and you recognize this section and then the next section and the next section, and when you put it all together and you just remember in your head, this is the part where it comes to the end, or this is the second block, or whatever it is. We just did the Talka Polka, which in order to memorize it for me, you know, a polka is in 2/4, but the third part of that Talka Polka is easiest remembered if it's 5/8, 5/8, 6/8, and then back into 2/4. Go and watch that video if you need to make sense of what I just said. But it's essentially how to take a complicated sounding piece of music and memorize it by giving yourself those chunks or those blocks of the tune and then slotting them all together. And that helps you just kind of keep track of where you are. So in this second part, that's your first phrase. So it's heading for that long B note. The next one. So if you think of those first 2 measures, the first 2 phrases of that tune are heading for long notes. The third one, you might recognize it because it's the very same as the first phrase. So you've got phrase 1 ends on a long B, phrase 2 ends on a high F sharp and an E, and then phrase 3 is the first phrase again. And then the clincher with this one is that the last phrase is just very short. And it's a bar short. So if it was an Irish tune, it would go, right? And the magic of this tune is that it doesn't do that. It just finishes on bar 7, and then we go back into phrase 1. So you got phrase 1, phrase 2, phrase 3, and then a single measure, tag at the end, and then repeat. So the reason I'm breaking it down like that is that if you're used to the pulse of 8 bars, which I am because of Irish music, this is a good way to sort of visualize in your head how the second part of this works. One phrase, second phrase, repeat the first phrase, and then a tag at the end and go back to the first phrase. And again, this is like a visual or mind map for the tune. First part is dead easy because it's in regulation, 8 measures, 8 bars. It couldn't be any easier, and it's very rhythmically just straight on the money. The second part has got all these long notes and the missing bar. That's where the magic is. So just spend the time memorizing the second part, how it sounds, all the little building blocks that make it up. And that's how you get it into your brain. This tune is in lovely open A. It's an ideal one to tune your G string up to A so that you have almost open tuning. It's not essential because the tune doesn't go down onto that lowest string, but for resonance and for one particular chord where you can use a C sharp on the bottom, then having the low A is just going to make this tune sound more kind of sustainingful. It's a new word, sustainingful. Now I'm going to show you some chords, maybe some pull-offs and hammer-ons, but definitely some slidey chord sounds. So what we're trying to do with this, because it's an Appalachian tune, we're not going to fill it full of triplets and trebles. We can, and I will, but to keep the kind of old-timey flavor, we need to fill it out with some double stops, some chords and harmony. One of the benefits of having your G string tuned up to A is that it brings the D note on the G string, which is now an A string, to fret 5 instead of fret 7. So when you go to do a D chord, your D note on the lowest string, melodically, the one closest to your nose, is now on fret 5. And your C sharp, which will be useful in this, is on fret 4. And that's instead of that being on fret 6 and fret 7. Hope that makes sense. So here's the tune with simple chords, right, just for flavor. And we'll talk about the slides and hammer-ons and pull-offs and stuff in a minute. So plenty of open A and open E, double stop sounds. This chord is a D, and again the benefit of having the D note on fret 5. Next chord is an A. Chord of E. Let's have a look at the second part. That's a chord of E, D, A. I'm playing that, I mean, it's quite slow right now, but very open and loose, and trying to find that kind of very sustainful, resonant sound. So here's just one more time through the second part. Now we're going to look at a slide that I don't think I've taught this one before, because normally when you slide a note, you play it and slide one fret. And you make the second note by pressing down and sliding across the fret. For this tune, we're going to do a double fret slide. So we're sliding a whole tone, essentially from fret 2 to fret 4. And that's B to C sharp for those working on the A string. So it's a lovely sound, but there's a little bit more work involved because of the size or the length of the slide. In the first half, this is what we're going for. It's a sort of a old-timey banjo vibe. So there's two of them. There's the one on the way up, which is probably the most straightforward. So that's a crushed note slide. So that's it as just a single note, so on the one string, playing the B on fret 2, and then immediately sliding it up to the C sharp. Combining the open E string with it makes it even nicer. Now what makes this one extra special is we're going to hit the double string chord on the C sharp and E, fret 4 and the open string, and slide it back down to the B. So you have this kind of slide up, slide down, and that's what gives you the kind of magic sound here. So you can practice it. So a couple of things. Your index finger needs to be nice and high so that the E string will ring out. You got to keep it pressed down all of the time, and maybe that's where the hard feeling is that there's quite a bit of contact between your index finger and the string, and sliding over 2 frets. Mine is starting to get sore now, and I've only been doing it for like a minute and a half, but that's doing it non-stop. And for some reason, the slidey one down, that seems to hurt a little bit more. My finger's starting to get sore now. That's pretty advanced stuff, but it sounds wonderful, and maybe it's something that you want to spend time learning. So we've played the tune nice and simple with some open resonant chords. We've done it with the slides and the slidey chordy sound. For comparison, here's the tune through with lots of what we would say Irish style ornamentation. like that? I like it. Now, there is an opportunity in the second half to do just one little measure of cross-picking, and that adds just another little bit kind of bluegrass, old-time flavor. So again, just the detail on that. So it's combining what we've done so far, the slidey chord with down, up, down, up, up. So slowed right down. Hope that makes sense. Here's a round of the tune with some backing tracks at about 110 BPM. Really give you some of that old-time flavor. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. If you did, hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the notification bell. And if you want all of the music for this lesson, head on over to Patreon and Enda Scahill Banjo. The link is in the description.